afternoon, everybody. Today, I'm here to ask you a question. Haven't you ever wondered what would happen if gravity suddenly disappeared? We would get pulled in different directions. We'd float up, sideways, anywhere, untethered, directionless, and unanchored. Sounds chaotic, doesn't it? But let me ask you something. Isn't bias the same way? An invisible force, pulling us towards people, beliefs, choices, whether we realize it or not. We're taught that bias is bad, a flaw, something to fix or avoid. But is bias really just a weakness? Or is it something more? Because bias isn't about prejudice, it's about preference. It's the reason why we have a go-to comfort food, a favorite song, a best friend. It's why some things matter deeply to us, while others don't move us at all. If we stripped all bias away, we live in cold, neutral logic. No passion, no color, no urgency. And honestly, would that even feel human? Now, I know what you might be thinking. Wait, isn't bias dangerous? Can it cause harm? Well, yes. Unexamined bias can divide us. It can cause injustice, racism, exclusion. But bias itself, it's not the enemy. Eliminating bias is like trying to eliminate gravity. Without it, we lose direction. Let me show you what I mean with a real story. In the 1970s and 80s, major American orchestras realized something strange. They were hiring mostly male musicians, even though women had been auditioning and trying out just as rigorously. So they decided to do something radical. They put a screen between the judges and the performers. Suddenly, the judges couldn't see who was performing, just hear the music. And guess what? The amount of women selected jumped dramatically. Why? Because even the most experienced, well-meaning judges were influenced by unconscious bias, assumptions about gender and musical capability. Now, let me be clear, they weren't trying to be unfair. They weren't even aware that they were being biased. But the bias was still there, causing them to gravitate towards certain choices based off of beliefs on musical capability. That's what makes bias tricky. Now, let me talk to you about Malala Yousafzai, the young girl from Pakistan who was shot for going to school. Most people in her situation would hide, be quiet, stay safe. But Malala believed that her voice mattered. She believed that she, a teenager with a story, could shift global conversations. That's what psychologists call optimism bias, the belief that you are more likely to succeed than anyone else. And thank goodness for it, because that belief is what led Malala to speak at the UN, to win the Nobel Peace Prize, to become a global symbol of girls' education and courage. Her bias towards hope, towards possibility, the gravity of her ideas became a force of global change. Opportunity bias is the belief that not everyone is given the same starting line. Where you're born, the school you go to, or even the networks your parents have can all tilt the scales before you get a chance to compete. But let's twist it. Can opportunity bias also motivate us? When we see imbalance, when we realize that not all doors swing open equally, we have the ability to become door openers ourselves. In this way, opportunity bias isn't just a challenge to overcome, it's a call to action. A reminder that if we've been given a stage and a mic, we can and should use it to widen that doorway for someone else, just like how Malala Yousafzai did. Now, I want you to think about the last time you met someone and thought, wow, we're the same. Maybe you realized that you shared a hometown or even just the same sense of humor. That instant spark, that feeling of connection is called affinity bias. On the surface, it can sound dangerous because it means we gravitate towards people who share a similarity with us, but let's flip it. Isn't affinity bias also what makes friendships possible? Isn't it what makes classrooms feel like families, teams feel like communities, and strangers feel like allies? Haven't you ever walked into a room full of strangers and felt completely out of place? I know I certainly have. Maybe you sat there quietly, unsure on what to do, just like how I did. Then, suddenly, you overhear someone. Maybe they were talking about your favorite band, or even just the show you were binging last week. Suddenly, you feel a spark. Out of all of the people there, any of whom who could have been just as good as a friend, you find yourself drawn towards that people who share that similarity with you. Because of affinity bias, I have made some of the closest friends ever. In this way, affinity bias isn't a challenge to overcome. When we see affinity bias, we see that there's a friendship to be made. That spark you feel, that pull you feel, isn't just coincidence, it's affinity bias. It's not the fact that we see everyone and think, oh, I'm just going to select this certain person. It's the fact that we feel trust. It's our brains telling us, they're like me, I'll be safe here. And in that moment, loneliness melts into connection. Not because anyone else couldn't have mattered, but because affinity bias gave you a shortcut to trust. When we allow affinity bias to open doors rather than close them, it becomes a superpower. In this way, affinity bias allows us to collaborate faster, build trust more easily, and help us find a common ground in such a divided world. So, here's what I want you to remember. Bias isn't always negative. It isn't always something to fix or avoid. We need to recognize, like gravity, it's something that pulls us towards what matters most. Why do we fall in love? Why do we root for the underdog? Why do we put our time and our energy into things that matter deeply to us? It's bias, it's gravity, and it pulls us. It can lift us, or it can limit us. It can divide us, or it can unite us. So instead of trying to eliminate bias completely, maybe we should learn how to use it, challenge it when necessary, and use it with intention. Thank you.